Well, I just want to test out the audio in the room. Wow, it's working. I can't get too close, otherwise I'll scare everybody away. It's a wonderful change, though, from the times in the past where it was too quiet. So thank you. Kevin, are we ready to go on the live stream to the community? Okay. Sorry, we were a couple minutes late tonight. We came from a wonderful social gathering at Historic City Hall for the Metro Council hosted a mixer with the cities. Just pulling up my laptop here. And I'm sure you'll hear about that in the mayor and council reports in a couple of minutes here. It is, Kathy, are you ready to go for this from the staff side? Okay, thank you. I will call to order this work session of the Westland City Council. It is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, 6:03 p.m. I've got a nice full agenda tonight with several council priorities and important projects of importance to the community and the city on our agenda. So we'll get right into it. First item is just to approve the agenda. So I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda for the Tuesday, October 21st, 2025 Westland City Council work session.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the October 21st, 2025 City Council work session. Any discussion from the council? Okay, seeing none, call the roll, please, Kathy. Thank you.
Councilor Bonington,
Yes.
Councilor Browner,
Yes.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Councilor Bright,
Yes.
Mayor Villasowski.
Yes, so the agenda passes, and that's the last time you'll have to call the roll tonight, Kathy. Quiet night in the work session. So that takes us to public comments for items not on the agenda, or some folks may wish to go early.
Rebecca Hollenbeck.
Welcome, Rebecca. And I think I see a plaque there, and I have to give you an early congratulations. Just
Kevin stole my thunder last week. So anyways, I'm Rebecca Hollenbeck, Executive Director of Historic Willamette Main Street. And I am here tonight to thank the city wholeheartedly from our organization for their partnership over the many years. And specifically the work that we did together on the streetscape project. I put in an award and we were chosen out of others throughout the state with an Excellence on Main award. So this is it. I will bring it and share it with you guys up there. And so that was a pretty big deal. And we had a couple of staff members that came, Luke and Eric. Kevin came, and we had quite a few of our board members came down for the award. So it was a big deal. They were joking that we had half of the people in the audience. It was not true, but that was kind of the running joke. So anyway, so that was great. And I just want to thank you. And I told John last week, maybe we can like trade it off every month or something. He'll have it at each location. But I'll pass it up so you guys can actually take a look at it. I know Kevin showed you a picture of it last week, so. Outside of that, I also want to just let everybody know that we do have our Halloween event coming up on Halloween from 3 to 6. And as always, we ask City Council, if you're available, to come down and hand out candy to the kids in front of our office. So we have a lot going on down there. I know that's a really big day because it's also rivalry day. And so there's a lot happening that day. And then I also just wanted to say that I'm very excited to say that we have finally joined OEDA, which is the Oregon Economic Development Association. And I am actually going to be attending their conference for the first time this weekend. So hope to bring back a lot of good information that we can use throughout the city from that. So thank you.
thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all your work. And Main Street. Should we take a picture? Would you like to take a picture with the city council and the plaque?
Yes.
Let's do that. Let's get another picture. And any board members with Historic Willamette can come up. Okay. Thank you, Ken. Also. We can move on to the next speaker.
The rest of them are here for the vision plan.
Okay, and Nicole Jackson, I think requested, she contacted me from the audience and wanted to speak during this topic because she can't stay for the whole meeting. Would you like to speak now? Okay,
So for everyone who speaks tonight, just come on up. Make
Yes.
sure the green light is on, and you're going to want your mouth really close to the microphones so that folks in the room can hear you. Thank you.
welcome. And just state your name and city residence, and you have 3 minutes. If you need to go a little bit over, you're welcome to.
Okay, thank you. Nicole Jackson, resident of West Lynn. I am here, good evening, counselors. I am here to speak on behalf of Friends of Willamette Wetlands tonight in relation to the waterfront vision plan. Unfortunately, I can't stay for that agenda topic. And I wasn't able to attend the last work session, but I wanted to share some concerns that I'm still seeing on the drafted agenda. So back in January of last year, Friends of Willamette Wetlands submitted some comments and concerns about the vision plan. They weren't unfortunately shared in totality with the working group, and so this has kind of continued to go on for longer than I would hope. I would hope that, we could get this kind of addressed and resolved and move forward. I wish I didn't need to reiterate these concerns, but it appears that the drafted changes on the agenda tonight do not fully reflect the concerns that myself and other community members have shared, both at the last work session and at the Planning Commission hearing in September. I want to also acknowledge Russ Axelrod's testimony and Terrence Shoemaker's testimony that was submitted for tonight. They could not be in attendance in person. The resounding community feedback was to preserve the wetlands. That's cited in the community engagement summary in Appendix A for the Pond District. It's also been amplified by our petition with over 3,850 signatures from community members who really want to see that area preserved. And this is, as has been mentioned multiple times, a community vision plan. So while I did see and we saw that medium density residential was removed from the map, there still is a potential development area that is highlighted in yellow south of Fifth Avenue next to the wetlands. And I feel like that's not what we were hoping for. There's a lot of constraints with that property in that area. And if it's a community plan, it should reflect what the community envisions for that area. And so keeping that potential development area sort of feels like an endorsement of development when there's so many constraints that exist with that property, including floodplain, earthquakes, steep slopes, the required wetland buffer, the Title III and Title 13 habitat area. It's been pretty clear that we don't want to see development in this area, and that doesn't prevent the property owner. I understand property owner rights. Removing it from the vision plan doesn't prevent him from attempting to or pursuing potential development, but it just shows that you are listening to the overwhelming community feedback when we say we don't want to see development. Highlighting development in that area kind of feels like ignoring the resounding feedback. So sorry for rambling there a little bit. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any, or clarify any concerns. But I really appreciate you listening to my concerns and other community members' concerns on this issue.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
We will discuss the map and issues with the waterfront plan a little bit later in the agenda, but we plan to talk about that if you watch later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your continued engagement. Okay. Well, that takes us to mayor and council reports. Reports from community advisory groups or city business in general. Councilor Bonington can kick us off today.
I and Cowell both attended the Fall Fest at Mary S. Young on Saturday, and that was really quite well attended. Traffic all the way out of the park at one point. And it was a really lovely time. So thank you to Parks for putting that on yet again.
Thank you, Councilor. So are you confessing you were Cowell the Owl at the?
Absolutely not, never.
Okay, okay. Thanks for attending that. It looked like a great community event. Of course, thanks to the Parks Department for all their work in putting that on. I know Director Big John's back there. Pass along our regards for that wonderful event to the staff. Councilor Groner.
Yes, the Sustainability Advisory Board met on October 16th. They summarized the parametrics report and kind of some feedback from their appearance before the council here. They're working on their annual report. There's some discussion about EV charging stations. And I kind of volunteered to try to talk to ROIC. I don't know if I'm stepping on anybody else's toes here, but apparently they own the Walmart Center as well as the Safeway Center. And they're the people to talk to if it's going to get electrified. So far, I've not gotten a response from them. That's about it.
Okay, sounds good. And I'm happy to help with that too. The
Okay.
EV issue. I tried to reach out to ROIC in the past too. We just couldn't get a meeting scheduled in the
Yeah.
past. We'll work on that. Oh, Chris Myers, Planner Myers, you're unmuted. There's on there.
My
Welcome.
apologies.
You're all good. Hi, Chris. Welcome. We'll hear from you a little bit later on Vision 43. We look forward to that. Council President Baumgartner, anything to report tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I attended both the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area Coalition Board meeting yesterday morning and the Willamette Falls Trust Board meeting in the afternoon. And exciting things are happening, especially with the potential of fundraising for the trust. And the Willamette Falls Trust staff will be moving into the Historic City Hall building and join the Locks Authority offices. And of course, the Heritage Area Coalition already their staff is in the building. So all three groups will be there working together. And I believe the Heritage Advocates will also be. So it's going to be a great meeting of the minds. So I'm excited for that. And of course, we just came from our Metro Mixer, which is an opportunity to meet and talk to Metro staff and convince them what a good project we are to fund in various ways, and also just meet with our local area electeds. So that was a great opportunity. That's it.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Brike.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Planning Commission meeting last Wednesday. The Planning Commission reviewed and approved the Metro Town Center boundaries. There have been some slight adjustments on those, and that I believe will be coming to council.
Thank you. I also attended the Metro Mixer and on Sunday got to host a group of Westland students from the Young Men's Service League here at City Hall and gave them a tour and have a talk so they could get their, they were having a certification in government as part of their, this group that there was. So that was very fun. Had about 30 people here and some parents as well. So enjoyed that on Sunday. Anything else to report? Okay, we can then move on to the council rules discussion in the work session format. So not approving them tonight, but I know there's a couple of changes in there to discuss to bring back for potential adoption if the council agrees. So turn it over to city manager or city attorney. And
Thank you, Mayor. City Attorney and I will do these together. There are only two changes proposed, or two kinds of changes proposed. These are based on previous council discussion in the case of the scheduling. So for those not familiar, the council rules is a document created by the city council that governs your operations, your proceedings, your interactions with staff. Basically just operating procedures for you that are able to be amended by the council as you see fit. Since you've recently decided to move your meetings till Tuesday, the council rules need to be amended to reflect that on a permanent basis. So on page 6, you will find 3 small changes where we have proposed you replace the word Monday with the word Tuesday. Pretty simple. Nothing else needs to be done, but it's good to have this clearly laid out so that it's correct. And then I'd like to introduce City Attorney to talk about the other change, which you'll find on page 25 of the council rules.
Everybody's favorite topic, litigation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the other change we're proposing has to do with the frequency of executive sessions that are held when the city receives a statutory notice of a claim or any other type of legal action against the city. As the rules are currently written, we're required to hold an executive session within 30 days of any receipt of such notices. From conversations with our outside counsel, Barry Elsner, who advises many other cities, they haven't seen this type of provision in council rules before. It may be somewhat excessive depending on the nature of the notice that comes in. And I believe, since I've come in as an in-house city attorney, you have much more access to our litigation. I give frequent updates. And in talking with the city manager, we thought that it would make sense to amend this, that we are required, either John or myself, to give you notice within 7 days of receiving any of those tort claims or other litigation notices, and then it will be up to you to decide whether to call an executive session on that matter. I think it just makes more prudent use of our time, but still preserves the right and the option for you to have an executive session if you want a more fuller briefing on the particular matter.
Thank you for that. And as the city manager noted, it's on page 25 of the packet. Just changing from requiring an executive session within 30 days to within 7 days, we will receive the notice as a city council and then be able to request an executive session if needed once we receive the information and kind of breakdown of the tort claim. So any comments or concerns or questions about that?
Makes sense.
Okay. Sounds like there's a informal consensus to move that forward. So we can, and I know we're already meeting on Tuesday, so there's already agreement on the first proposed change.
Great. So we'll schedule that for your next business meeting for adoption.
Perfect.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. And thank you to you both. Thank you, Kaylee, for flagging that provision for us to change. So council rules is concluded. So now we will transition to another item that the city attorney has worked a lot on, along with Director Megan Big John, the Mary S. Young Park lease agreement with Oregon State Parks. And folks may not know this, but the city doesn't own that property. Probably our biggest park in the city, it's leased through the state of Oregon, and all of a sudden the lease agreement came up for renewal, and so a lot of work behind the scenes have gone into this. I've even participated in a meeting or two on this, so I probably stole some of your thunder, educate the community on that, but I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, yes, I think this is a little known fact. There are some signs in that park that note that it's owned by the state of Oregon. It's a long-standing partnership, obviously a beloved community asset. But as we noted in the staff report, this relationships comes with some potential risks to the city that are financial and operational in a sense. And so when the lease came up, Megan and Kaylee really dived into working on this with the state of Oregon. I appreciate your time on it. And our intention today is to give you an overview of what's in this document and some of the risks that a long-term relationship carries, just so that we're all aware of it and going in with our eyes wide open. So I think Megan's going to start us off, and then perhaps the attorney weighs in from time to time.
Thank you, Council and Mayor, for having me today. This has been a long process. It was kind of started when I got here and has taken quite a bit of work together collaboratively with State Parks. So I just want to give you a little bit of history of what we're doing. Obviously, the purpose here is to have you be in your packet was the red line or the agreement where we've gotten so far. And wanted to be able to ask, would you want to be able to move forward with a 25-year lease agreement again with State Parks? And so that's what I'm doing here today. So thank you for having me. I don't really have to tell everybody here how much of a gem this park is to us, but I thought it was good to have a little bit of historical context to it as to how it is so special and for those who don't know. So it is 133 acres, and that's about 20% of our parkland that we have. It's on the Willamette, as you know. It became a park in 1973, and it was donated to Oregon Parks and Recreation Department by Mary Scarborough Young and her husband, Thomas E. Young. I'm learning a lot through this process too. I had a lot of fun researching the information. But it's a real gem. And since we've got it, we've added athletic fields in there. We've got, the pollinator park or pollinator garden. The dog park I found was in existence when we got it. Did not realize that. Additional restrooms. So we've added some additional recreation amenities for the park users. So it's quite exciting. This is another fun one to show. We have been working with a company called City Data. And this is the use of within Mary S. Young over 2024. We had about 55,000 visitors. And with this data, we're able to see that on average, the average person spends about 35 minutes in the park. And 93% of the people who visit are from Oregon. There are 27 other states, though, that are represented. And about 75% of them are from Clackamas County. So I was wanting to see how much of a regional park it is, and it still is our local gem within the Clackamas County area, but it's really interesting data to see. And I don't know if you can see on that bottom blue line, that yellow line that spikes up, that would be Fall Fest last year. We can now see that we had about 2,000 participants. Kind of neat information. So for programming, this is what you know, but for the community who doesn't, we obviously host a lot of summer camps, city events there, shelter reservations. We have schools that come on a regular basis. We're trying to figure out coordinating with that, but they use it as a resource as well. We have Down to Earth, for school that's operating now there during the school year as well. And then Saturday Fun Run Club. I mean, wow, that was pretty neat. We had that going on as with the Fall Fest on Saturday. It was pretty neat to see. And then our amazing volunteers, they're there weekly. They also have monthly work parties, but it's really well used and loved, as we saw, as Councilor Bonington mentioned, with the parking going to the Fall Fest. Just some stats to realize, though, that our volunteers give just under 2,000 hours annually to the park. I'm sure there's more that we don't capture. We do, as far as we have to look at cost recovery, and I wanted to find out what our revenue is. Not necessarily revenue, it's what we charge for fees to be able to compensate for that use. And we were able to generate about $60,000 over the year of 2024. But when you're looking at our expenses, we were able to look at just some of the raw data that we had for staff to maintain the park. That barely covers that, which is okay. It's not what you're trying to always be, 1 + 1 = 2, but it is something to look at. And just for one maintenance price, we spend about $22,000 a year on maintaining those fields. So the part is that park is loved. It's a gem. We are trying to look how we can streamline and continue to care for it. Oh, Cowell. Cowell was there. I'm so sorry I missed Cowell in that picture. Flew in just like an owl. I'm pretty proud to look at this list. This was just information I was able to find since 2007. This isn't like all the data and all the projects that have happened at the park, but that is pretty impressive. What we've done over how much we've put into it and how much we have improved that space for recreational opportunities. Of course, you see our storm cleanups too, but there's a lot of added amenities. It's really awesome. So what kind of came down to our main discussions with state parks is we were looking at trying to identify, and I'll get into that conversation with state parks next, but just looking at holistically all of our parks in general. You've heard from me that I'm trying to figure out a deferred maintenance plan. So you saw all the things that we added to the park. There were some features that were in existence when we got there. And it's the parking lot, the road, the bridge that we're working on, the restroom, asphalt pathway, which we're fixing right now, and shelter. And so I'm looking at those things long-term of how will we work those into our replacement plan. Another item that is probably most deepest concern to me is the invasive pests that are coming our way. The Mediterranean oak borer and emerald ash borer, those are, just infestations that are just on the brink of coming. And so I really want to make sure we're prepared and have a plan with state parks to move forward on that. And then natural disasters, ice storm, wind, I don't even want to say the word fire, but things that we want to be prepared for. And that's where this lease agreement was trying to figure out how we can partner better and have a better contiguous effort on this property. So I'm going to include our city attorney, Kaylee Klein, in this conversation, but we had many conversations with state parks. And I have to tell you, they are in a tough situation too. There was a lot of things, and when you actually see the document of where we had changed, a lot of basic updates to the contract language, updates to how we procure a contractor to be able to come into the site, to be able to do work. Those were things that were relatively easy to work through. They really want to empower us to be able to take the lead there and make it easy for us to operate. I'm really grateful for that. The one thing that you've heard from me is I wanted to really figure out the conversation, could we do cost sharing with some of these larger, impactful situations that may be coming to us. As you probably have seen, state parks have had to, in our local area, Tryon, MacGyver State Park, they've now had to add in fees for day use. They've had to cancel their cultural passes that they had. They are really in a position to not be able to help us, just to be able to onset of this lease agreement to say, we can cost share these with you. But what they did do, which I was really grateful for, is you see the 3 things, and it's way more than 3. This is very minimalizing what we all did, and I'm going to pass it to Kaylee if she wants to add. But they did offer up their state forester to come and spend 8 hours with us looking at how we can make some planning for the future. By going with a 25-year lease, we're able to then apply for grants that are through state parks. If we were underneath that, we would possibly not be able to apply and be qualified. They were offered to be able to have a better collaboration with their regional leaders and their regional park rangers to be able to collaborate more, especially with those invasive insects coming through. Or who are you using to buy the bridge that you guys would, where do you guys buy bridges? Just having that, brain trust amongst us, which is really huge. And then they did not take off the table, wanted to be able to put in language in there that says we can talk about future cost sharing if we come up with this situation. The one thing I did emphasize is a lot of the planning for these natural disasters, you have to work on pre-planning in advance so that when they occur, you know what to do. They don't have the money to help with that for now, but they are engaged in that and we'll be working cohesively together on it. Kaylee, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'm sure you did a great job, Megan, introducing that topic. We worked really closely with the state and we had many asks we came forward with, and although we did not achieve them all, I definitely feel confident that we improved this particular agreement in terms of reducing the city's risks and potential financial obligations. When this came to my desk and I saw that it was a 25-year lease, that obviously piques your interest in terms of making sure we review this with a fine-tooth comb, especially given that when I worked with Megan, she noted there's a lot of major expenses with caring for a 133-acre park, and we're not compensated for that. We're basically like a steward carrying this out on behalf of the state. And so I wanted to know what some of those potential expenses were. One of them that she mentioned is the total, I was going to say repair, but actually the total replacement of a major footbridge that's going to be in the avenue of,
We had an estimate of 50. I'm hoping it's not that much. And I'm trying to apply for a grant too.
$50,000, which was a bridge installed by the state, not by the city. And so, my question is why is the city saddled with these costs when we're basically the caretaker on behalf of the state? And then the other major flag for me was this, I was going to say impending, but somewhat arrived threat of the Mediterranean oak borer and the emerald ash borer. And given that we have over 1,000 oaks in Mary S. Young, the cost of treating and or removing trees should they be infected is a huge expense for the city. So we went back and forth, and basically what it came down to is the state is really strapped for funds as well. And I had originally proposed cost sharing mechanisms, like they pay half the cost or something, or maybe 25% of the cost. And really it got down to like all they can give is support from employees in terms of expertise, in terms of loaning particular individuals, the brain trust that Megan talked about, which in fact we did find is more helpful. And it felt like we furthered our partnership. And as I'm looking at this, it occurred to me that we attached the clean version of the proposal, which is what we normally do so you can review, but you're unable to see all the changes we made. So after this meeting, I can circulate the red line if you want to really be able to hone in on where we worked. But one of the issues, for example, what we really did was try and put the responsibilities of a landowner back with a landowner and the responsibilities of a lessor, with the city. So for example, in their agreement, they had us being responsible for legal encroachments to the park. That was in 5.5, and that was really concerning to Megan and myself, given the amount of acreage. And so we made sure to add language where we would collaborate to help resolve, but the final resolution of encroachments, including but not limited to legal action, is the responsibility of ORPD. So we will city attorney time to, handle encroachments of that area. One place that we also worked on was law enforcement activity. That was something important to PD, that they had wanted to make sure it was abundantly clear that they're able to enforce city code within the park and show up as law enforcement officers within the state jurisdiction, within the state boundaries. And they said that was fine, and we clarified that there. I also made sure, given these upcoming potential expenses with the insects, that we had an ability to terminate if we needed to, sooner than 25 years without any penalties. So we worked on that language. Originally in section 25, it was pretty difficult for the city to subcontract out work. We had to have written approval from OPRD, and with the amount of work that Parks and Rec handles there, it just really was administratively burdensome. So they loosened up a lot on that, gave us much greater authority to subcontract out work. And then we spent a lot of time in Exhibit B. Sometimes we skip the exhibits, but this is probably the most important part of the agreement because it talks about the statement of work in terms of what we as the city have to provide. So we really struck a lot of the language that had to do with replacing or even upgrading things and focused on we're responsible for general maintenance. And that if replacement costs were basically replacement costs are cabined by our own financial constraints and the budget that we have. We're not expected to restore everything that was in the park that had been originally provided by the state. And then you'll see in section 4, we queue up the issue that is probably the most concerning, is the cost of handling these insects. And we kind of kicked the can down the road, but we agreed that those costs would be determined in an amendment to this agreement. And so we're carving that area out to address when or if it arises in terms of payment. It is a tough relationship because we really we appreciate the benefits of the park and like being stewards, but when you have costs, Megan, could you allude a little bit to the costs like Wilsonville or maybe some other cities have dealt with regard to those insects?
Yeah, just an example for Wilsonville, where one of their trees was about $35,000 to be able to remove, when they had to have a crane to bring in, especially think of property lines, not in the interior of a park where they couldn't access it. And then the debris, the way you dispose of those, that is ever changing. But at the time, they had to direct bury it somewhere. So they had to find a property owner to take the oak to bury it, and then had to do, treatments at the location. And so that education and that template model is ever evolving right now with Oregon Department of Agriculture and Oregon Department of Forestry as well. But even just like the one oak that we have that's dead there now, that is not infested with Mediterranean oak borer, we have to drop it and chip it, get it down to 1-inch sizes as best as we can.
How much was it again for one tree?
$35,000.
$35,000. And how many trees do we have in Marius Young, did you say?
1,000.
The
Yeah,
1,000?
and that's just an estimate from our consulting arborist. And so what you're looking at, again, that's not a sustainable cost. But
No.
my worry with this is that if something were like this to happen, we don't own that property, but what happens to all the other acreage that we have? Where do I focus my energy and time with our resources on? And that was kind of where this has started to fuel, to kind of, how do we get them as a better partner to be able to take some of that ownership? Where should our tax dollars go to, and where is our highest risk as a city? So that, again, that was when Wilsonville was taking their trees down a year or 2 years ago. Luckily, they're evolving, finding that you cannot dispose of those trees that way. You would not be able to. And emerald ash borer is honestly a bigger risk and concern because it comes through in the amount of ash we have in our wetland areas. Stream corridors is much vaster, but our oaks, you can't replace that size of a large tree in any short amount of time. So they're both of a risk. So cities around are trying to figure this method out. We don't want to go in without having some sort of plan of who's responsible for what, which, when and if and should that occur.
Yeah. I'm glad you tracked that.
Right. And so
Crazy.
before we had those conversations and made these amendments, it could be read that the city would be responsible for those types of remediation and treatment costs. And so again, I would direct your attention to section 4 of Exhibit B, where it talks about how we will handle these types of insect or disease. And it says, we further agree that both parties have the right to terminate the agreement if a mutually agreeable amendment cannot be reached. So basically that's the carve out for the city if we're unable to strike some type of cost sharing deal or agreement on how that level of cost would be handled, then we would be able to terminate the agreement.
One other thing I wanted to add is if you look at the dollars and cents spent on this beautiful acreage, but it really ultimately comes down to safety, right? Wanting to make sure that we can preserve this park, not only for what it is, but keep those amenities safe for the public to be able to enjoy and experience. And so that's kind of where my heart is with it, of just how can we continue? We're planning to, but we want to make sure that we have that great, strong partnership with, with OPRD. So my last slide. So I wanted to ask for questions, but where we're at right now is next steps is, depending on what feedback we get from you today and what further discussion we have is finalizing the legal language with state parks to figure out where we want to go. Depending on where right now we're set to come back to you if they're ready to move forward on November 12th. But that depends on what questions you have. And so I wanted to open the floor to you with questions you might have.
Well, thank you for the detailed and presentation and good agenda report also with the documents in there. Council President has a question to kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, thank you so much, both of you, all of the hours that you have spent on this very important matter. Just to be clear, this language as it is right now is in agreement with the state. They are in.
Yes, so
Okay.
this is the language, you have the clean copy of
Okay.
what is now resting with the state after we did all the back and forth redlining. And it has been referred to their Oregon Department of Justice Assistant Attorney General for review. Basically, their client has agreed to all the terms, but they'll have one last look by Oregon DOJ. And they're aiming to get back to us before the business meeting so that we could keep it on that meeting. If there were any changes proposed, it would be in that staff agenda report. And if they are unable to turn around the legal review, then we'll push it to the following business meeting.
Okay. So there is a potential that this will be approved. There won't be changes.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Groner.
Yeah, two questions. You mentioned the number 20,000 as revenue, and I'm not sure, is that what you are, as expenses? Is that what you're currently spending exclusive of contingencies? I wasn't sure what that number referred to.
Thank you for asking, and sorry for that being confusing. No, it was just an example of one cost we have there, is that's for maintaining the athletic fields over a year and a half timeframe from fertilizing to aerating, just the work that takes to take care of those fields. So I don't have the full annual cost of it. We do track our hours by park, but we were struggling to get the exact number, missing the seasonals as well. And so that's where it came around 50,000 for just the labor to be able to maintain that. But I know that's not encompassing everything that we do there. Yeah.
But in general, it's far and exceeded the 50,000 revenue that you get.
Yeah, the 60,000 revenue that we have there to help offset our costs.
My other question is, you mentioned a bridge that needed replaced. This is not the bridge that was destroyed during the ice storm, is it?
No, that one had to be let go, but this is the other beautiful footbridge. It's like a 30-foot span over that.
It's the old railroad bridge?
Yes, it is. So we are looking to get that replaced. One amendment too that came from this contract or agreement was that we had to have any deferred maintenance repaired in 30 days. And so that is now no longer in that language, is that we're going to repair that as soon as we can. Like I hope to get that repaired by next summer is my goal. But we're still looking at our funding options for it. And hopefully I'm going to be applying for a grant to get some help for it. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Other questions? It's a complicated legal document, taking a look at it, but I just feel like looking at it and hearing from the presentation that you gave, you've done all that you can on behalf of West Lynn to get the best possible lease and the best possible terms. And I participated in one of the meetings, and it was clear that the state was coming at it from a very difficult financial position because they're making cuts and having budgetary issues. So I feel like we're not going to be able to get much better than this if we want to have a lease. And if we don't have a lease, then we lose one of our precious assets, or it gets thrown into uncertainty. So I think the community would expect us to get this approved, but we do have to be realistic about the financial planning and realities for things like oak borer and the replacement costs for facilities. So just to be clear, they're not contributing to that footbridge, for example. That's kind of on our okay. Interesting.
Regarding that footbridge, Megan is hoping to apply for a grant for that. And what that is one of the terms we negotiated that they said they haven't done before, but we have them agreeing to work with us on grant funding, providing letters of support,
That's
and
nice.
also sending regular updates to Megan when they have grant opportunities arise that they're aware of. So that was just one way to try and pull in a little bit of their expertise and guidance and helping us get grant applications in.
See, that's awesome work. Thank you for that. The city thanks you. Council President, and then Councilor Bonington has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so it comes to mind just because last week, I think, got an email from the Friends of Tryon Creek that they are now charging $10 a day for cars to park in. I mean, I'm assuming it won't be $10 if you walk in. There's places to park outside of. I only bring this up because the unpopular question of should we look into any kind of a fee for using the park in any way, whether it's teams that use fields, or I'm just throwing this out there, very unpopular idea, I'm sure, but I mean, the reality is money doesn't grow on trees, and especially if there's oak borers in them. So, I also wonder, so isn't Tryon Creek a state
It
park?
is.
So I was kind of curious about any comparables and learning from each other.
So, well, that is still owned and managed ultimately by state parks. They have a friends group, the Friends of Tryon, who manages the programming out of that location. And so that fee is going to state parks, to my understanding. So MacGyver is another similar one that doesn't have a Friends of, that state parks is putting that. So all of their state parks, I now believe, have a day use fee for
So
their.
the city of Lake Oswego doesn't have to pay for Tryon Creek.
City of Lake Oswego does not manage that. State Parks had
Okay.
asked City of Lake Oswego, but they denied that several years back while I was there due to the funding ability.
Oh,
Funding, yeah.
interesting. Oh, well,
Mhm.
thank you very
You're
much.
very welcome.
And Council President, I would just make a note to that comment, which is very on point. If you look to Section 6 of compensation and payment terms on page 3, there is an express provision about that. It says the city shall have the option at its sole discretion to charge park visitors for parking fees or other special use fees to help generate revenue for operations and maintenance of the property, so long as such activities are consistent with the LWCF Act. That is the Land and Water Conservation Fund Act, which overlays the property. And so that is an option that we haven't really explored, but it is something that the lease allows us to do and keep those funds.
And one thing to elaborate to make sure, it may not have been clear, but we do charge for our shelter use, right? We do charge for tournaments. We do not currently charge for day, like just our weekly camps, or not camps, practices for sports leagues there. They pay for tournaments. We do have camps there. And then there's also special event permits that we provide. So we do have some of that fee cost recovery with that. And the one thing with parking is you have to figure out how you're going to manage. You get the fee, but you have to have somebody be able to monitor to make sure it's being applied correctly. So it's a little bit of a, there has been, I guess, talk in the past of our, boat launches. Is that a good possibility for that? But you have to have manpower to be able to monitor it to be effective.
Good point.
Councilor Bonington, go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty relevant to what I'm thinking. It would be fantastic to be able to explore charging for parking, even if it's just at certain events at certain times. The thing that stood out to me on Saturday while that traffic line was happening was that it would be great if people could park elsewhere and walk, but that's not even practical because there's not a crosswalk for quite a ways in either direction. There was an access issue there. So if we're going to be doing something like that, we're going to need some help from the state to be able to create a crosswalk because that's also their highway. I know different state departments are pretty far apart, but it seems like it would be nice if we could get some cooperation on that as well, adding crosswalks at all. I believe one of them's almost a mile away to the south, and then the other one's not particularly close either. So yeah, would we have any difficulty? I know adding parking is no one's favorite idea, but if we needed to make reconfigurations or changes to other elements of the park, is that going to be very difficult with this lease?
I might turn to you, Megan, because I think you have a little experience with the changes to get the ball fields and things like that in place.
Yeah, so any changes because of, I'm not going to have the exact information, but what we had to do in the past, there is a stewardship requirement for for the park and the deed to remain for parks and recreational uses. So obviously there was a park added, there was the ball fields that were added, and you had to go through that process to be able to seek that permission and verification from state parks. I don't know if John has any history on that either, but it's going and essentially applying to state parks to say what you're wanting to do, what the intent is, and then to verify that it meets the deed restrictions on there. The interesting part, you can go there and there's no parking at all, and then you go the other days there's a ton of parking. So when I drive through when I know events are going, so when there's like middle school cross country meet and there's like 5 different teams there, we found, okay, buses can't park there. So we make those adjustments. We had a debrief about Fall Fest today and tried to wonder, have we outgrown it? What do we do with these parking? We're going to talk with PD about a traffic control plan. So there's things that we are trying to mitigate that because it's a few times out of the year where that happens, but it is very impactful. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. But I think getting additional parking may be tricky there with the uses we have, but we should explore any option we have. Thank you.
Appreciate the comments on the crosswalk also. We should do that. I used to live along there, and it's very hard to cross over to get to Marius Young. It'd be helpful for access to the park. I'm going to go to Carol, and I'm going to go to Leo, and then we will wrap up and move on to the next agenda item. And I'll give the council a chance to put any concerns they have on the record or any information requests after to go. Councilor Bright, please.
So I was going to say on Saturday, I walked over from where I live to the Fall Fest. And one thing I noticed, yes, there was a lot of traffic, but I also noticed a lot of people walking on the pathway in front of Marius Young. I don't know, I didn't recognize most of these people, so I don't know if they were my neighbors in Robinwood, but there is a park and ride at the church there on the corner, and it's possible that people knowing that parking could be a challenge took advantage of the park and ride and walked to the park.
Thank you for that. Councilor Groner.
Yes, I just want to throw out an idea for revenue. I think some towns have stickers that you can buy and put on your car that might entitle you to park on certain days in the park, or for that matter, might be a different sticker for the boat ramps. But this might be, and it doesn't involve somebody standing there collecting revenues. Presumably somebody could periodically patrol and see who doesn't have a sticker and give them a traffic ticket or something. Just a thought.
Councilor Bonington, last comment. Thank you, Councilor Groner, for that.
Yeah, this reminds me that there are actually parking computer programs that have been developed that you just need a clear camera view of the lot. And when someone parks, they pay and they put in what spot they're in with their license plate, and the camera can detect like that car's in there, or there's a car there that hasn't paid, and it skips the entire need for manpower for the most part, compared to what we're talking about. So that could be a very cost-effective way of doing that.
Yeah. Well, as you go forward with working on this lease and getting it done, and then we'll uh, move into the next phase where we go back to kind of the status quo of using the park if there's issues that come up with on the revenue side where you feel like you need, there's a huge deficit or, issues with Mary S. Young that would require council conversations about revenue for the park. Just bring it back to us. And I know you would if there was something going, but like if the borer shows up and we're in the hole somehow, we might have to have some serious conversations about those sorts of ideas. But for now, I think it's good to just get the lease done and then we will see what we need to do going forward.
Sounds great. And I really appreciate Kaylee brought a lot to the table and had just her resources and knowledge. I was super grateful to have that support through this. I couldn't have done it without her. So thank you.
Any issues that any counselor would like to put on the table for changes to the lease or additions to the lease or any sort of thing like that at this time, just for a check? And obviously this is a work session, so if you think of something, you can write into the city attorney and parks director, but I think you've done a great job on behalf of the city. So note of the next step. So we'll schedule this for a business meeting in November pending DOJ's legal review, it sounds like.
That's exactly the next step. So we will schedule it as soon as we can based on the review we get back from the state. The last thing that I want to add is obviously all of the financial issues that Megan described for this park. It's the same. We have hundreds of other acres of parks, and every single thing that you just heard is true about every other acre. If we have the ash borer or the emerald borer in our park system generally, we don't have some massive sinking fund to pay for a huge unexpected incident like that. And so we would be having just as much of a problem, and it won't be confined to one park. It'll be everywhere. This is one where we have this opportunity to assess and agree to a level of involvement, but for the other 500 acres or 600 acres of park that we own, we don't have an agreement. We own it all and we're responsible for it. And so it's a pretty big deal. And I think thinking of our park system, much like a water system, much like a street system, it's an infrastructure that we own that comes with deferred maintenance, that comes with potential liability is probably important because I don't think we all always think of our park system that way. And it takes something like this to make us realize, oh my gosh, if we had to pay $10,000 a tree to have it removed and properly disposed of in our entire hundreds of acres, it would be a huge thing for this community. So it's worth thinking about more globally.
That's a great point. And
And on that cheery note, people love parks.
hey,
I know I usually suggest goats, but beavers, just saying.
and Megan, if you go to, actually, if there's a Parks Board meeting in the near future, I'd love to hear their thoughts on just whether we should approve the lease
Yes, I will add that to the agenda. That's great.
for them. I know they're very engaged and good group of people, so we'll look forward to hearing that. I'm sure they'd appreciate the update on this too.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you, Megan. With that, we will then transition to another big topic for the city, which is the Waterfront Vision Plan, which is nearing its final stages here. It's in the final stages, nearing adoption. We've received some public testimony earlier, received a couple of letters as well that'll be entered into the record for this work session. And this is envisioned to be the final work session till we adopt. And I know that we have some folks here from the advocates who I also sent in a slideshow that they would like to present. Are they able to present that as well when they speak? Okay.
So Mayor, would you like the public comment to happen first, or would you like an initial staff report?
Let's do the staff report so that we can hear, because there was some language that was discussed last time about I know the advocates are here to talk about preservation, and you probably have an update on that language, and then they might have a suggestion, so we can kind of try to see where we're at. So we'll kick it off with the staff report, then go to public testimony at the
Perfect.
appropriate
That's great.
time.
So take it away.
All right, thank you, Mayor and councilors. So I've got Adrian Whitty with me again tonight. Adrian will be going through a short presentation, but we just wanted to recap the 5 items that council asked the project team to address at your last work session on the 7th. Adrian and his team have updated maps to address the first three, and then we are looking for feedback and direction from the council on the final two, which are potential language additions to the document itself. So I'll turn it over to Adrian. And Adrian's just going to run through a quick presentation and get to the decision-making process.
Yeah, Adrian Whitty with Tool Design. Good to see you all again. So from the meeting 2 weeks ago, if we go to the next, oh, we've got the clicker. There are a few action items that you had asked us to address out of the session that we presented 2 weeks ago, including 3 map modifications and then 2 language changes. So those map modifications were to do with the floodplain boundary and Planning Commission's recommendation to use the 1996 flood boundary rather than the 100-year floodplain. Then to remove the specific language around the medium density residential currently in the planning stage in the Ponds district and replace that with more generic language and adjust that area to be outside the flood boundary. And then lastly, to add those sort of ecological corridors to the district maps. And then we have some draft language related to the preservation, encouraging the preservation of existing structures we would like some feedback on, and also language around incorporating affordable housing language into the vision plan as well. So in terms of the map changes, they really impact maps in 2 of the districts, primarily the Pond district. So the primary changes here are in the area that you see above the lower pond, where we've changed the floodplain boundary to represent that 1996 level, and adjusted the nomenclature around that potential development area to remove the specific language on that and to remove it outside of that floodplain. We've also added some designation around the ecological corridor in that area as well. In the Cultural Heritage District, there's not really a major change here. But we did just want to flag that the changing of the floodplain boundary just changes the plain boundary here in this district as well. So just wanted to bring that to council's attention. There's no material difference in any of the recommendations or designations in this zone.
Do you mind going back 2 slides? That one. Thank you. I was just looking up the current image to compare it. So thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Go ahead.
Great. In terms of wording changes, firstly, talking about encouraging preservation of historic structures, we wanted to flag, this was in the meeting packet, where there is existing reference to that in the document, as well as some places where we could encourage more reference to that. So in the document, the existing language around the goals on page 5, mentioned supporting cultural and environmental stewardship. The guiding principles on pages 11 and 12 bring in some of those elements as well, as does language in the planning framework, as well as in the district-specific plans in the Historic City Hall District and in the Cultural Heritage District. So those are the existing references, if you like, to encouraging preservation. But we're also bringing forward some additional language that would be added to the Cultural Heritage District planning framework as well, that would encourage preservation of those structures. And we've got several different options here for how that could be structured in terms of wording. So adding a bullet to that section that would say something in the way of evaluate structures for historic significance and cultural integrity. It could say encourage rehabilitation and reuse of key historic structures where economically feasible. Could say support opportunities for rehabilitation and reuse of historic structures. It could say work with private sector partners to identify key historic sites where rehabilitation and reuse would enhance visitor experience and support projects that showcase industrial heritage. Or it could say encourage exploration of rehabilitation and reuse of key historic structures in partnership with property owners or some combination of those different variations. In terms of affordable housing, there is some reference to that in the document on page 23 that talks about financing affordable housing in the market analysis, and the challenges with that. But adding potential language to page 12, which is the guiding principles, that would say something like river access key elements, encourage affordable housing development to ensure equitable access to the river. And then on page 37, which is the section on housing density and parking, a couple of options here would be to add language supporting new affordable housing projects, potentially with tax increment financing funds, could help meet the needs identified in the West Lynn housing capacity analysis. So referencing things back to that housing capacity analysis and the need. It could say the city should consider allowing a variety of housing types to encourage affordability across income ranges and use targeted infrastructure investments, incentives, and expedited permitting to support development. So thinking about how affordable housing could be encouraged. Or it could say it will be important to work with private sector partners to identify opportunities for affordable housing development, which is maybe a little bit more broad. So those are the changes being brought forward, both map and wording. I'll turn it over for discussion.
Somehow everything just shut off up here, and I don't know if
I think it's just
maybe it's, there it goes. We heard a sound and everything went black. It's like, oh no. Okay, we're back. Okay. You may continue. Or you might have been at the.
I am at the end, and yeah.
Okay. Well, for the sake of process, let's just talk about this, the affordable housing language first. Would you like us to kind of look at the language and kind of give direction on a particular option? The last one, I'd like to hear from the community about the historic structures issue, but this one we might be able to just tackle real quickly. Councilor Groner.
Yeah, I like the word encourage, which is positive. Evaluate is kind of neutral. I don't think we can commit without understanding all the factors and the expenses. And I think realistically, we do have to work with private owners as well. And so that should be part of the language. So I think it's the last of the options, bulleted options, that I like.
You talking about the third one here?
There was one with bullets on various language, a couple earlier, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Related to the preservation of historic structures.
Yeah, but I think something similar for lower cost or affordable housing as well.
Do you have thoughts on the affordable housing bullets that were these potential language choices? And then we'll turn to the historic structures. Agree with you on the encourage. I like the second
The
one
TIF
here.
is a potential source of funds, and consider allowing. Well, the word encourage is there, but I think something stronger that consider allowing.
I would propose the second line here, just changing it to say should encourage. The city should encourage a variety of housing types to encourage affordability across income ranges and uses, targeted infrastructure investments, incentive, and expedited permanent support development. Of course, it's an aspirational statement, but would everybody okay with that type of language?
I agree with that. I was kind of looking at that one in connection with the other, but how specific do we want to be in this vision process? I think acknowledging that we will encourage a variety of housing types at various affordability levels, I think is important. So I kind of like the middle one, maybe wordsmith a little.
Any other? That's cut two counselors, but I want to hear from everybody. Counselor Baumgartner?
Thank you. I think the second wording is fine. I think it does need to be, at this point, a little bit more general. And this does that and includes the elements that we're hearing about and that we've been talking about that we want to prioritize. So I would agree with so far what you've all said.
Counselor Bonington, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I agree. The more general on these things, the better. It's too early to try and be that specific, I guess.
Thanks. And I think Counselor Groner, you were in agreement, or stated your
Yeah,
agreement earlier.
really positive, but not commit us to anything
Oh,
particular.
Counselor Bragg.
Just looking at it, how about the city should allow a variety of housing types? We haven't done the zoning, and so the zoning would initiate various housing types. So kind of take out the consider allowing and just say should allow. And then that paragraph, I
Okay.
think, states what we're trying to present.
Makes sense. Okay. So I thought we would tackle that potential change. We've done that. And so now we will turn to the historic preservation issue. And I would like to take public testimony at this point, if that's okay with presenters at this time. Okay. How many folks do we have signed up? I see we got
Just two.
okay.
Dan Butler.
Okay, yeah, come on up. Whoever would like to come on up from. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I got your I got your slideshow, and I heard you might need to go a little bit over 3 minutes, and that's totally fine.
Okay.
Welcome, and just state your names and city of residences, and take it away.
I'm Dan Butler. I live in Clackamas in the shadow of Mount Talbot.
I'm Aurelia Rohrabacher. I live in West Lynn. We come from the Advocates of Willamette Falls Heritage, and our president, Troy Bowers, sent you this email, and I'm just going to read it really quickly, and then I'm going to go through some of these slides. As you know, we, the Advocates for Willamette Falls Heritage, continue to proactively assure that the history of West Lynn community around the falls is not lost as the city grows and becomes home to future generations. The Waterfront Vision Plan will play an important role in determining the future of the area around the falls. The Vision Plan offers the City Council the opportunity to incorporate elements of West Lynn's rich waterfront history, including its industrial heritage, into the waterfront's future. Because our mission and involvement, the Advocates has considerable knowledge about Moores Island, the Willamette Locks, and the area covered by the Vision Plan. We do not encourage for saving all or a majority of built structures and industrial artifacts. We do request that the Vision Plan clearly encourage the preservation or reuse of some of the built structures and industrial artifacts. We would like to share with you pictures of some of the existing treasures and a couple of concepts that repurpose industrial elements to preserve the heritage of the area. We think incorporating such concepts into the Vision Plan will be instrumental in highlighting possibilities, opportunities, and expectations. Thank you for your continued consideration and support. On behalf of the Advocates, Troy Bowers. This is sort of redundant as what we just saw. You guys have some great ideas for changing some of the language. So this is just to sort of underline that point. So to introduce myself and Dan, I am a resident here and I grew up in West Lynn. I have an architecture degree from PSU, and I also worked in architecture for a long time. Dan is an industrial photographer, and for the past 10 years, he has been touring Moores Island extensively with former employees, and he has a wealth of knowledge about the goings-on and the intricacies of the area.
Okay, well, what we have, this is what we have, and it's somewhat misleading in that we have a whole lot more. But I think this is a brief snippet of some of the areas in the mill that frankly, a lot of mill employees have not seen and landowner PG has not seen. Pictured here on the left is grinder room number 3. This is where they use water power to grind wood into fiber for paper making. That was one of the 2 methods they used. And this is the big structure that's out closest to the falls. To the right shows it's almost a cathedral-like space where the big 13-foot penstocks come from the face of the dam to the turbines to spin the grinders. And these are very unique spaces and have a lot of potential for multiple uses. And it's truly one of the treasures within the mill.
You have to point up a little bit.
Point the right way?
I got it. Oh, it's over there. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Moving to the lower part of the island, on the left is in Mill B, the base of the digesters. This is where they use a chemical process to cook the pulp. And they're essentially big pressure cookers. And that process stopped in 1968. These 4-story high digesters are what you used to smell. The bad smell of a paper making operation was a sulfide process. And like I say, that discontinued in 1968, but the structures and the digesters remain. The one on the right is an acid accumulator, but it's there mostly to show some of the views that you can see from the various structures on the site. This is still in Mill B. That's on the left is towards the top of the digester. Again, this is like a big thermos bottle, 4-story high thermos bottle. To the right, that is the top of the digesters where the wood chips would fall in and they would cook it for about 8 hours under pressure. And looking at out the windows, this is about halfway up the big structure that's right next to the smokestack. The area above this is filled with wood chips, or was.
Okay, almost like that. Okay. I just wanted to juxtapose that digester that we have with this project in San Antonio, Texas. This is the Sternworth, which is the bar inside the Hotel Emma, which sits inside what the former Pearl Brewing building that was built in 1894. Here you can see beer tanks have been playfully repurposed into seating booths for the bar and restaurant. I'm going to read a little bit from the hotel's website. When you visit Hotel Emma, you'll see the industrial artifacts respectfully and sometimes whimsically incorporated into graciously designed spaces. A sweet ceiling is the bottom of a cast iron hopper. An early 20th century compressor has been retired to the lobby, and solid bronze industrial gadgets are repurposed as lighting fixtures. The brewery's tangible history is taking on new life at Hotel Emma. So I personally visited this project and it's incredible. There's a couple other just sort of inspo pics. This one on the left is the Kamenets Brewery. It's in an original brewery building built in 1860 in the Czech Republic. It was used as a warehouse after brewing operations ceased after World War II. In 2016, it's been bought and turned into a brewery again. On the right, we see Empire Stores, which is a mixed-use adaptive reuse project on the formerly industrial waterfront in Brooklyn, New York, which is pretty similar to what we have here. The architects are called S9, and this little bit from the website says, S9 sympathetically joined 7 separate historic buildings and added an additional 2.5 floors to create a new public space that celebrates and preserves the area's industrial past while establishing a new community hub.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Which part?
What was that originally?
I don't know originally what it is. There were 7 buildings, so there's lots of different functions in that area. Yeah. And this is a more local project to look to. Do you want to talk about it, Dan?
Yeah, this is the the Spokane steam plant on the left, which was right in downtown Spokane, powered a lot of buildings in Spokane. It was decommissioned and set idle for many years, and has now been repurposed into both a hotel and restaurant. And you can see on the right what they've done to incorporate a lot of those entities and artifacts of the original structure into a very attractive and functional facility.
Okay, so just in conclusion, what we're asking for is to strongly encourage and incentivize an adaptive reuse approach that turns some of the embedded energy and strong visual historic elements in the existing built environment of Morris Island to new future uses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members.
Thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank also the other advocates behind you there that have been part of the process for a long time, including a couple of former city councilors, Jim and Jody. Nice to see you both. Welcome back to the chamber. I think it's the historic preservation is very important to us, so we'll get into the specific language in just a few minutes, but we really appreciate the examples and photos, and it would be so cool to see something like that in the future at the Falls. And I know we've been dealing with the tension of not restricting the private sector to the point where nothing can happen, but making sure that we can do something to see where reuse can happen. So we will discuss momentarily here on the issue. Any other questions or comments for the advocates? Councilor Groner, please.
Yeah, a couple of observations. One, it seems most of your examples are in downtown areas, and I think Morris Island has some real problems with access. And just a comment. But the other is, who would be doing the investing to do these rehabilitation? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that would come down the line. Jim Edwards has a lot of experience in this. He's a urban planner, and so there's lots of options.
Thank you.
I think that'd be when, talking to former Governor Brown and the trust and the engagement process that they're going to have. I think this is the type of thing that we can talk about as she's doing fundraising, and that group is working hard on that, making sure that there's some advocates for reuse wherever possible would be great.
This is basically our dream for your vision, I think. We're trying to promote it.
No, absolutely. And we definitely appreciate that. And like I said, it'd be awesome to see those sorts of brewery like that sometime on the right near the falls. Did you have a comment? Council President Baumgartner, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, and thank you for the engagement and also the information. My concern about this area is the reason why I started coming to council meetings originally 6 or 8 years ago, or however long ago it was, is the toxins that are present in these sites. So a brewery is a different type of use than a paper mill. So, and a steam plant is in a similar way as a different use that didn't have the level of chemical use. And so those are the concerns I have, is the cost to make safe a building that was used with such toxins present. So I think that's going to be our big challenge with this whole area, is how to be able to repurpose it reasonably, financially reasonably. So I'm not against saving buildings, or I'm just being realistic about the possibilities and not wanting to restrict what we can do with a preservation kind of restriction on it. But not every building, maybe some of the buildings that were not used with, not in such close proximity to toxic functions, that's certainly a possibility. But I appreciate all of your work and diligence on this. Thank you.
Any other comments for the advocates? Councilor Bonington, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in strong agreement with what Council President said there. I guess I would be supportive of something to the effect of encouraging adaptive repurposing, as you called it, to the extent that it's not going to become cost prohibitive to the property owners who end up developing it. It's great in theory to think about some of this being preserved in that way, but if it sinks the entire project and it ends up continuing to sit unused as it is, that would be a tragedy. So we need to strike a balance there of what we're trying to accomplish without foiling the entire thing.
Good comments. Counselor Groner and then. we'll
Yeah,
let
I
the
grew
ad-
up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and there've been some really creative reuses of old railroad stations in Pittsburgh that have basically been turned either into office buildings or basically shopping malls. But both of them had easy access from the city.
Thank you, counselors. Well, any other questions for the advocates, or maybe we let them go back to, okay. Well, thank you for coming and presenting.
Right, thank you.
And we will now engage in our review of the proposed language from our staff. And with a language in mind that the advocates also presented about encouraging some adaptive reuse. Yes, it'd be helpful if there are the bullets right there. Came off somehow. I don't know if that happened. Oh, Ms. Solberg, would you like to make a comment? Welcome. Sorry, I didn't know you. Maybe there was confusion on the form. I'm glad you flagged us before we moved on. Please, from the Historic Review Board, the esteemed chair, I think. Go ahead.
Thank you. I had emailed with Lynn. I didn't realize there was an extra step to take here. So my name is Kirsten Solberg. I'm a West Lynn resident. I'm an architect with my business based in West Lynn. I'm also a member of the Historic Review Board, but I'm not here to speak in that capacity. I have a handful of comments about the waterfront plan. I'm not connected with the adaptive or the group that just spoke, advocacy, but I am a huge proponent of adaptive reuse. I admit that access over a lock is definitely challenging, but that is a building that maybe people don't realize how amazing it can be, but it is worth trying to preserve and reuse and treasure. There are examples of paper mills that have had successful adaptive reuse projects in Danville, Virginia, and in Maine. There's textile mills in Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. One of the most interesting ones I saw was in a floodplain and also incorporated a trail that encompassed the history. And I'd like to follow up with some of these images to share with you later this week and links if you want to learn more about those projects. The next thing I wanted to say is that during the Planning Commission meeting, when there was discussion about toxins in the wetlands area, and also this applies to Moores Island, it would be nice to know who is our contact person in the city in the event that we can get these areas cleaned up. It seemed to be unknown about who's the contact person and whether or not these areas will be cleaned up. If we don't deal with the toxins now, it's just going to cause problems down the road. And I haven't seen the report. I don't know what the contamination is, but with a background in architecture and life safety and welfare, bad stuff happens. And the longer you kick the can down the road, the harder it is to take care of. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the language about citing the 1996 floodplain, I would like to instead suggest referring to the FEMA floodplain documents. That considers not just the 96 flood, but all floods and all projected floods. It has information about base flood elevations in it. And just for example, the base flood elevation, if you build below the base flood elevation, you have to follow FEMA design guidelines. Normal materials for a standard home or commercial project can't be used below that base flood elevation. Insulation, gypboard that has a paper face on it, a whole bunch of items can't be used below there. It can't be a habitable space. So for instance, I have a printout of the FEMA flood zone for these areas that we're discussing, and I'll include that in the information I send later. At Bernert Landing, the base flood elevation is 75 feet. On Moores Island, it's between 69 and 49 feet. And then, for instance, at the Cedar Oak boat landing, The elevation in the floodplains that you can build above and have a normal habitable space or commercial space is 46 feet. And in jurisdictions I've worked in, it's a pretty rigorous process where the drawings are scrutinized to make sure they comply with design guidelines. There are pre and post-construction professional survey reports that are submitted to make sure it's complied with. And it has repercussions for whether or not a jurisdiction can have access to the National Flood Insurance Program. It just seems like it's such an important document. Anything that has to be built needs to comply with it. It seems like that's the document that should be used for making some of these big decisions. I thought I would also mention that municipalities that don't comply, they can be put on probation or suspended from the flood insurance program, which is very bad for a municipality. And it can also interfere with jurisdictions receiving FEMA or state disaster aid. So
Please share that map with us and the information you just mentioned, and we'll have our planning staff take a look at that
I'd be happy to.
before the next, the adoption meeting. And if we have to make a change, we'll make a change.
Great.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments on the historic preservation and all that you do for the Historic Review Board as well. Look forward to reviewing that when you send it over tonight. Okay. Back to the issue at hand, which is the preservation language. So here we have a kind of a breakdown of the existing language, just showcasing that there is some preservation language in the plan. And we transition to the, oh, there's another more language, okay. And there's the some potential language. Now we've got 5 options for a city council to choose from. How does the city council narrow it down to 1 in a timely manner with 5 good people up here? Councilor Breik has a thought.
I would eliminate the first bullet because evaluating structures doesn't have an action item associated with that. It's just look at them. And I think we need to be a little bit more specific about encouraging the rehabilitation or those kinds of things.
I would almost propose, I agree with that. I'd almost propose a combination hybrid of bullet point 2 and 4. Because you're encouraging rehabilitation and reuse of key structures where economically feasible, and work with private sector partners to identify sites where rehab and reuse would enhance visitor experience and support projects that showcase the heritage.
That merger is almost exactly bullet 5.
Oh, okay. So what do you guys think of what I proposed?
5.
Yeah, I think the element of 5 that was missing from that one is identifying which ones are the key historic ones, so that, I don't know, some of those resources aren't going into the wrong areas. And then encourage the private property owners through whatever means we have, whatever incentives we have to work on this.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that, Councilor Groner. Councilor Breik, you have another thought?
And I think also in the wordsmithing, I really liked the language that the advocates had in their last slide. That seemed very concise, specifically said what we were hoping to do. And so if we can incorporate that language into our statement, I think that would be good, at least a portion of it.
So it sounds like there's some agreement among key themes on what we'd like the final language to say, maybe reflecting some of what was in the advocates' statement, just encouraging adaptive reuse. They had language strongly encouraging. And then maybe you could take a stab at, based on the council discussion, coming up with a bullet point that kind of captures the partnership with property owners, the importance of the private sector, and, the economically feasible element, because that's another key that I heard from the discussion from Councilors Bonington and Groner. Does that make sense? We'll trust you all to draft something up, and could even send it out to the city council at some point.
Yeah, we can draft up a couple of options for you and send it out to you in advance so you have a chance to to look over it and weigh in on it.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense, and I think it reflects that we hear the advocate's testimony. We want to make sure that the plan reflects your values, which I think are our shared values as well, from the historic preservation and reuse wherever economically feasible. So that kind of handles the two issues. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I do want to just ensure council knows that what Ms. Solberg talked about with the building materials and the review process, that is all part of the city's current process if you're going to develop in the floodplain. So we have all those rules in place in the community development code. The building official ensures that any development in the floodplain meets the standards. So the city's already doing that. So it's all right.
Thank you for pointing that out. And if another map comes in that has a different line that maybe would make more sense, we can review that and take a look at that.
Yeah, it's the property owner's responsibility to establish the floodplain elevation and then provide the drawings that show whether the building is above or below the floodplain elevation. So just so the community knows that is taking place in the city of West Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And before so I think that kind of addresses the main couple of things that you had from your slideshow for potential changes. And I just did want to take a moment to address some of the public comment that came in that we've received from a few folks. And I just have been thinking about that because at the last city council meeting, this is in relation to the map and the delineation in the Ponds District that shows some potential development area south of Fifth Avenue. And I wanted to clarify what's going on with that and the shading on the map. That yellow color is used across the entire waterfront, basically, to show areas that are technically developable, meaning that they're outside of the floodplain. It does not mean that housing or any other kind of development is planned or encouraged there. And at the October 7th City Council meeting, I raised the issue with the council of whether we should remove the yellow shading South Fifth Avenue or remove the language that was said medium residential in the planning stages. And the council decided we're going to remove the language on a medium density residential. And then when we talked about the map, and the planning staff recommended that we keep that in place for consistency across the entire waterfront plan. And so I just want to be clear that whether that area is yellow or not has nothing to do with whether development could or couldn't occur there. And I think we heard that tonight. But the city council was in charge of that and directed that was how the area should appear on the map at the last meeting. And I want to thank the planning staff and our consultant for your professionalism and work in doing that. There was some criticism of the planning department because of that map continued to show the yellow over that south of Fifth Avenue property. But that was, from my perspective, a council decision, or really the council did not object at the time last week or 2 weeks ago to that provision. And you all are doing a great job bringing forward what we are asking you to. And I am willing to open up the conversation to the council just for a final check. If folks have any final comments on the plan, the map, I know the council really does support wetland preservation. It's part of the plan. And there just seems to be a hang up over that last little part of the map. But I really don't want that to be something that makes a really negative adoption hearing, even though it's something that, is just showing developable area that's technically developable under city zoning code. That's it. So it's not an endorsement by the city council. The endorsement was taken out because we took out the medium residential in the planning stages language last week. And not that was an endorsement, but just that potential tilt. Any thoughts from the council? I saw Councilor Breik, and then Councilor Bonington has a comment.
I kind of want to jump in a little bit to the concerns raised about the ponds. And my understanding is that there are various levels of remediation that would be required depending upon the use. And yet there's concern that if we don't have remediation start immediately that there is the chance of incursion of any of the toxic sludge from the ponds escaping. I don't know how we deal with that because we're not the owners of the property. We don't have a development plan for the property. And as I said, I believe the remediation would vary depending upon the type of development that is determined. So I don't have an answer to this. I just think it's something that we need to consider and at least express that, yes, we know that there could be some risk there, but we don't really have the ability to do anything about it at this point.
With the ponds in general and the environmental risks there. Yeah, no, that's been an important topic for Council President Baumgartner as well. And, at this time, it's not under city ownership either, so it's kind of, but I think we should, we've do some studies on that at some point. And something we should definitely note in the plan from the standpoint of making sure that area is not toxic or not spreading toxins around. Councilor Bonington had a comment on the plan.
Maybe I'm being overly cautious with this analysis, but to the extent that this map just reflects developable area, just like we're not including language that says we're encouraging that specific part to be developed, to deliberately remove it from the map and state that we're not going to allow development there would immediately have an inherent bias for land use decisions we might have to hear in the future. So we kind of need to leave it in the middle, I would think, of just being realistic about the fact that it's developable, and whatever comes after that, that's a decision we may hear in the future.
Subject to all of our city regulations and everything. I
Precisely.
appreciate that. Any other thoughts? Council President, please.
Thanks. So I do have, and this is kind of in the interest of clearing up something that I continue to hear concern brought to us, and including tonight. The reference to the public comment not being available to the, I don't know if has been stated about it was not available to the working group. I don't know if maybe you could clarify that a little bit. I know that was a question you've answered in the past, but maybe you could just, for the record, remind how that was made available.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so when the survey was done or was put out for the community to respond to in December of 2024, it was open for about 6 weeks till the end of January. We received a number of comments from the community. We had distilled those comments down into a matrix and then provided responses that then we gave to the working group. We did not supply them the hundreds of pages of actual emails and comment letters. We put it into that matrix so it was more digestible. So that was provided to them. We heard feedback that wasn't acceptable. So moving forward with the Planning Commission and Council, we've provided all comments that have been submitted from that time forward. In your packet, there are links on the page 5 of your agenda bill, links to all of the comments we have received leading up to your decision-making process.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because it had kept coming up, and I just wanted the public to know that their comments are being read and we are taking them into consideration. And on the subject of the cleanup of the ponds, and I don't know if this is a question that can even be answered right now, but it's really a legal question that can the city require a more strict level of diligence than DEQ? Can the city of West Lynn, for instance, say, well, DEQ is only requiring X steps to be done. That's not good enough for us. We're going to up the ante. Is that something that cities can do?
Yes, that's a great question. And I did speak with staff at DEQ. They have never had this happen, but they said it would be possible for a city to enact stricter standards like parts per million of a cleanup if they wanted to, but you would have to go through the process of setting that through a scientific research project and then get it into your code, which would take several years. And then they said that there could also then be a challenge though, because the standards set by the state of Oregon and the Department of Environmental Quality are done in conjunction with the federal EPA, and then it's done through state statute and state law. So that's typically what is followed is the state law. But yes, the opportunity is there if the city wanted to pursue it.
And then just kind of now we're speculating, so bear with me. But in your experience, would that then need to be the standard for every property? Would that be then a new standard? Or could we apply it on a case-by-case basis?
It would be the standard citywide.
Okay. And I'm very interested to hear about the potential of converting paper mills. So if anybody, and I'm putting this out there because I'm genuinely interested, but at least one of the examples that you mentioned was a textile mill, not a paper mill. So it was, well, textile mills, of course, had less chemical. That's the concern. I'm just saying that if there's paper mills that were the similar process of what these mills were doing, then I'm really interested in not reinventing the wheel. If some other municipality has found the ability to do this, I think it'd be great to learn about that, how they were successful, and maybe even we could find out funding sources for cleanup. Maybe there's federal funds available, for instance, for these purposes.
More or less in agreement.
That's it.
Okay, and I did want to note, Mr. Shoemaker brought up the resolution. Did the planning department draft that, or did city attorney draft the resolutions? I don't recall the process for this one.
I drafted the resolution, and if you would like to add with recommendations, be happy to do that.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking when it gets to the adoption stage, like if you had the planning commission's recommendation specified out and then the next whereas in there kind of specified what the city council accepted them and took some action on it, and what we've been discussing and what we decided to do based on those recommendations, it could be helpful just to make sure the resolution is abundantly clear that we adhered to the planning commission recommendation, or we received the recommendation and acted upon it in X way.
Okay, yeah, we can update the resolution to have do exactly as you just said.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that. Is everybody okay with that from the city council? Just making the resolution a little bit more definite and certain? Okay, I see nods. So with that, are there any other issues on the waterfront plan? I have to tell you, everybody, I'm excited because this has been a long-term process that's been, Council President and I were elected in 2020, and we've been working on the waterfront trying to see this through for many years. And so I'll save my longer statement until the next meeting, but very exciting to get to this point and 10 years in the making. Darren, I think this has been one of your main projects the entire time you've been with the city of West Linn, if I'm not mistaken. So good work. We'll get it across the finish line. Mr. Williams, any final thoughts on the waterfront plan before we turn to the next exciting plan?
No, let's keep the agenda moving, but we will be making those changes that you've defined, and the current adoption schedule is November 18th meeting. I'll talk a little bit more about council schedule later in the meeting. And also just to note that we will perhaps forward some options by email, but the council does not make decisions by email. So you just be reviewing those individually and making the decisions in our meeting.
Exactly, that was my thought.
Yep.
I'm going
I'd
to.
like to reassure the public about things like that.
No, I appreciate that. Council President has requested a break, and I agree, we've been at it for almost 2 hours, so we will take a quick 5-minute break and then get to Vision 43. We are ahead of schedule tonight, so appreciate that. We're in recess. Oh, it's in my house. It's a toy car, but it's a Z4 exactly like your car. It's like a model of your car.
Oh, is it?
That Andrea Waddell gave to give to you, and I have it sitting on my shelf.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll get it to you soon.
Right before
There's a lot.
I used to stand up sometimes. Very glad to dance.
We're back. Oh, no. What have I done?
He's gonna have to schmooze for 20 minutes now. It's funny, I went to go search for and you know what came up?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, how about that?
I didn't really care.
No?
I mean, it wasn't, I think I was quoted as saying we made it like a mess or something, but
I didn't see that one.
not very articulate, but that's okay.
Accurate.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I kind of consider, I try to consider people's attention span or reading about, you know, and maybe they don't want to hear every nuance or detail in my brain, so.
Well, I
Saying-
care about that.
Saying it's a big mess is, I guess, a good way to sum it up in short.
I've called it that a few times. Although, yes, I try to be more articulate.
It is, yeah, it is an interesting. Oh, my goodness. Heather. No, not this. I have, there's more others. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm not done. Yes. That is a good point. Good point.
So funny.
By the way, you remember what's in here? Adjustments, whatever. I mentioned this to you. So there you go. That soon to be launched. That's what I said. I'm just. I'm sure that you like the. Yeah. Just wait till you're on. It is possible. People that you you're getting numbers, you need to read those places. Which I'm still. You're on screen, Joe.
How you doing? Thought I saw you on the screen before.
He's downstairs, just listening and working.
Yeah.
Trying to be productive.
I don't think you said anything.
No, I didn't say anything. Walking away. When you log in. I'll say something. For me.
So you're both in person and remote today?
No, it's me. Yeah, I'm freezing.
You don't get an extra vote though. This is yours or mine?
Okay,
Is this yours or mine?
I got to restore order to this room. There's a lot going on back there. But we got to restore order. Thank you very much, everybody. No, the crowd is filed out, but we still have Rebecca Hollenbeck from Main Street and Steve Coper back there. Thank you for being here. We will reconvene the meeting. Again, we're in a work session on October 21st, 2025. We have finished the waterfront vision plan review and sent that on to the adoption phase. And just for the record, Mr. Williams, when is that going to be? Forgot to clarify, the waterfront plan will be adopted on what
November
date?
18th.
November 18th,
Yep.
okay. So we will look forward to that, and we'll transition to the Vision 43 project update. So lots of, two very important plans being discussed tonight, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Chris Myers, Associate Planner, who's been working very hard over, I don't know if it's been 2 years now on Vision 43, but glad to have you on board.
Thank you, Mayor Bielostowski. Appreciate it. Council President Baumgartner and councilors. Appreciate your time tonight. And yes, to confirm, it's 24 months this month that we've been working on this project since both approval and we started spending money on it. So yeah, I'd call it 24 months. So
wow.
Yeah, we're getting there piece by piece. We'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, thank you very much for the time tonight. It's been a little bit since we've given you an update on the project, and we've had a few changes and strategic pivots on a couple things that I want to bring you up to speed on, and then talk about the timeline. So before I get started, as you know, I really enjoy giving credit to those who do a lot of work that you don't get to see. And so as it has become regular, I have to give a shout out to Lynn Schroeder. She's been the backbone of this project internally for us, and without her, I wouldn't, this project would not be where it's at right now. And I also want to give a second shout out to our new Community Development Director, Steve Coper. His insights coming from outside of the city, coming from another jurisdiction and multiple jurisdictions, have actually been really enlightening for me as a project manager to kind of view things maybe a little bit differently. We get a little lost in it sometimes, stuck in the, once you can't see the forest and the trees, and really appreciate that. Plus, he's my boss and writes my review. I'm kidding. I actually do appreciate it, Steve. Thank you. Oh, I have a controller. Forgot about that. Oh, I apologize. Technical difficulties on the side green. Look at that. Okay. All right. So tonight's topics, we are going to talk about a project timeline extension, a budget amendment, a phased approach to our rezoning process, and a larger strategic pivot. Thank you, Mayor Bielostowski, for that language that I completely took from you today. All right, so as I normally do, just in case there's someone viewing in the audience or on TV online that doesn't know what Vision 43 is, I have a brief description. Excuse me. We are out developing a new community vision for the Highway 43 corridor here in West Linn. We are collaborating and have been collaborating for for 2 years now with community members to shape our project recommendations. We're out to enhance walking and biking connections within and to the corridor. We're trying to expand opportunities for local businesses, housing, and community gathering places. And lastly, of course, sort of how the sausage is made, updating city plans and policies that support that vision from our community and implementing those project goals and recommendations. So, project timeline extension. We originally planned for approval to be this month, October of 2025. We've had to adjust a little bit as we've gone on. I'll get into some of the details as of why. We have extended the project timeline with a plan for approval of about July 2026, June, July 2026. The extended timeline is going to allow a couple things to happen. We are going to increase our outreach with residential property owners within the focus area. And I'll get into a little bit more of the detail in a few slides or in a little bit here. And then also it's going to give us more time for some community open houses to review some of the proposed code language. Again, I will dive a little deeper into that as we move through tonight's presentation. And then another smaller update for you is we've had a budget amendment to the project. As you may remember, this council approved $200,000 for the Vision 43 project. And with the extended timeline, it adds a little bit of consultant project management cost. And as part of that extension, we've also asked for some simplified visualizations, some renderings that might be a little easier for the layperson to understand exactly what we're talking about. And in those newer renderings that those simplified versions of renderings, we're going to get what can be done now, and then what could be done with what's sort of being talked about as new code. So giving sort of a before after, if you will, to really let the community understand what it could look like, what it will look, or possibly could look like. The amended budget, we added $19,850 to our contract with MIG, our consulting firm on the project. Those funds were actually already budgeted for the Vision 43 project through the budget cycle that started July 1st, 2025. And we are now utilizing them for the project. So that is done, but just thought I'd, full disclosure, show you our new amended budget. And let me pause there for a moment. Just any questions about the timeline or budget? Any concerns, outrageous remarks?
When you say visualizations, are we talking still images or video renderings?
Still images. I would love some fly-through type renderings, but they happen to be quite expensive and beyond the range of the budget that we have for this project.
All right.
So I'm sorry. Believe me, I've seen them for other, like, they're really cool. But yes, they'll be still, but I think they're going to be a far more palatable view than our sort of side version that we've had for this project. The sort of that cross section is going to be a little bit easier to kind of see what we're talking about. I think it's going to help the community understand more of what the code shift and change might do for the city.
Our friends at TVC TV always tell me, they ask me, do you have any ideas for, do you need any video projects or, things, promotional things that they can help us out with? So, but if you ever want a, quick 60-second or 2-minute, however long video on Vision 43 to talk about, whatever you'd like with it, I'm sure they'd be willing to help out and come out and even film and work on the project. So something to think about.
Yeah, that's great. We'll reach out and kind of discuss options and see where we're at. That's fantastic.
Speaking of videos,
Yeah.
any other questions on the timeline or budget?
Yeah.
Seeing none.
2 pretty easy updates. I have 4 total tonight, so get the easy ones out of the way. So the next part, and let me say this before I flip to that next screen. I really appreciate council's patience. I know we all want this project done, a year ago or last month or this month. Sometimes when you get into a long-term project, things change. You hear things from the community and you need to shift and pivot, as Mayor was talking to me about earlier today. And those pivots take a little bit of time. So we appreciate that your patience in getting through this with us. We all want it done quickly, but we also really, really want it done right, especially for a visioning project that should go for decades, or a document that should help guide us for decades. So I just want to say I appreciate the patience from council. So the next part let's talk about is the rezoning strategy. All right. So you'll remember we have 3 focus areas, and sort of the initial concept has been we'll rezone all the properties within those focus areas. Well, we've been getting some feedback from the community that maybe that's not entirely, some people are concerned. I'll put it to you that way. And we do our best to listen to the community and hear what they have to say. So we are going to pivot just a little bit on that strategy. So what we're going to do now, based on concerns and then staff recognition that, the extensive outreach we've had so far, maybe rezoning residential properties deserves a little bit more specific outreach. So we're going to take Vision 43 and do a rezoning process in a phased approach. Okay, so we're going to start with, we're essentially at this point going to do 2 phases. Phase 1 is going to focus on those primarily commercially zoned properties in the corridor right now, within the focus areas. I'm going to give you guys some maps here in a minute. A few of the properties will be residentially zoned. Most of those are already acting as commercial properties. However, that happened over the years. We're not sure. It did, so we're going to clean that up. But most of these are already zoned commercial properties. That'll be phase 1. And then phase 2, we'll go back and look at residential properties within the focus areas. I think that's where a lot of the concern has been coming from some of the community, is like, hey, wait a minute, like, we don't understand how this is going to affect us. We are concerned. And so we hear those concerns and don't want to just rush through a process. So The other part that this will allow us to do, taking this phased approach, what I envision is inviting each of the proper residential property owners within the focus areas to come meet with us, probably in smaller groups or one big group, I'm not sure, and really discuss their concerns, what rezoning would look like, what could happen, what's sort of worst case for them, and really talk through that with them so that they have a level of comfort if we do rezone their property. I think that we owe them the respect to do that, and we hear those concerns. So this is why we're kind of pumping the brakes and wanting to take a phased approach. Yeah, I saw you.
Councilor Groner has a question for you.
Yeah, from a homeowner's point of view, in a property that's going to be rezoned, is that likely to increase or decrease the value of his property?
Well, I honestly, my amateur, opinion about that, or I guess I'm a professional planner, but I'm not an agent. I mean, Kevin has some, or Councilor Bonington has some thoughts. I think when you open up the opportunities on a property, it probably has an added value. If you can only build a home there today, it has one value. If you can do 5 or 6 different things, maybe that increases the value. But again, that's just my opinion. I don't know if Councilor Bonington, a professional realtor.
Professional opinion, it definitely increases it. I mean, it may be valuable to someone to have a home where their neighbors aren't going to develop something larger, but in general, it is worth more to be able to open it up and on the market, much more valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah. And one other comment to that is that question has been asked of me recently, excuse me, at the Robinwood Neighborhood Association last week. And I think there's a little bit of distrust when we give the answer of, oh, it'll increase the value of your property. And I think we want to be able to sit down and show someone that that's the case versus just sort of off the cuff say, sure, it's going to increase the value of your property. We want to assure them we're not out trying to take value from anyone. And I think, again, it's not that, you'll see on the map, we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds of residential properties. And I also don't think those would be the properties that would get developed first. So I think we're okay if we just kind of slow that part down and move forward with that phase 1 of really getting at those commercial properties.
Yeah, but for most owners of properties, they're concerned with their properties.
That's correct.
Not the 100 others.
100% correct. Yeah. And we want to be able to hear those and assure them what we know. And there are some hard truths in there as well that yes, if your property is rezoned, your neighbor might do something different than a single family home. Or maybe they'll add an ADU that could have a small business. I don't know. We haven't really sussed that part out. The reason we got to this phasing approach was that we had already been in discussion internally and with our consulting firm, and even Councilor Bright was in on some of these conversations about, how do we've got 2 different things going on here. We have commercial properties that are adjacent to the highway, and then we have some residential properties that are not. The same zone for those properties is probably not appropriate. One probably needs to be a little bit more intense where the other not. So we already saw this issue of having, sort of 2 different zones or subzones or however you want to call it. So it kind of made sense as the feedback kept coming in that, yeah, let's just tackle the first, let's phase it and tackle the commercial first. That'll give us time to talk to folks and address the concerns.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, oh, here we go. I did that already, didn't I? Outreach. Okay, yeah, there we go. So the language on my left, I suppose your left as well. The language on the left is actually consistent through the next 3 slides. What you're looking at are the focus areas outlined in red, and the blue shade are the properties that we would intend to rezone in phase 1. Almost all of those are commercial properties today. Again, there are a few lingering residential properties in there, but primarily these are commercially zoned properties. This is focus area 1. I'm trying to, I don't have a cursor, but yeah, Walmart's down there toward the bottom of the screen, the big square white box there. All the way up to the Burgerville area at the top of the screen. So that would be phase 1 in focus area 1. I'm going to go through the next 2 maps as well.
Councilor Bright has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I think that The concern is going to be more with the properties that are just outside the focus areas that are residential, more so even than residential properties that could be rezoned, especially as we've looked at this, many of these don't act as residential properties anyway. So I'm hopeful that with the outreach that we can also set up time to talk maybe with some of those adjacent property owners
Yeah.
so they can get kind of a sense of what might happen next door to them or in front of them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. How we get at that, do we have everyone come together or do we separate that? We can kind of work that out through the process, but I think that's a really good point. And thank you for bringing that up. I got a note. So here's focus area 2, sort of the center of the screen. The point of that middle triangle is the old Bolton Firehouse, just to give you some context of where we're at. And you can see we've taken all those residential properties out of the phase 1 approach. The focus area boundaries have all stayed the same. And so we're just removing those residential properties for the most part. And then focus area 3, bottom of the screen, is I-205. You can see the market of choice kind of in the middle there with the library not too far north off of Burn Street. So, we've removed quite a few residential, not quite a few, a few residential properties off of the what would be west side or to our left for phase 1.
Councillor Bonington.
Was the Bolton Firehouse removed on purpose? I noticed it was not blue. Has it always been removed?
It's blue.
Is
The
it?
new Bolton
Oh,
Firehouse.
okay. The old
The
one.
one
I'm
that we
saying the old one.
can't do something
Never mind.
with.
My bad. Sorry.
I had a moment of panic right there, but okay. Yeah, so that's our phased approach. I'll pause here and certainly take issues, concerns, questions of council. Okay, I will keep going and feel free
No.
to stop me.
You can continue.
Great. Let's see here. All right, so the next and last thing I have for you tonight is our strategic pivot. So previously I've come to you with policy questions. And then we talked about pros and cons, and there were some questions on those questions, right? And that's perfectly normal. So we're gonna pivot a little bit on this. And what we're gonna do is, because it's a fairly time-consuming process to go through, is we're gonna sort of bake the cake a little bit more before we bring it back to you. And what I mean by that is we are gonna take out the draft code. I'll show you here in a moment. And we're gonna go through and we are gonna take it to our technical advisory committee and our project working group, both in November. We're gonna go to some neighborhood associations in January. We're gonna have open houses in January and February. And at some point, well, and then we'll start our work sessions with Planning Commission. So what we're going to do is take more and more of the community feedback specifically about that draft code. I envision those open houses being big round tables where we're kind of old school planning, talking about what the code means. And we're going to bring you back sort of some higher level questions, but we're going to be much further down the road. And that way you guys, as a council, won't have to get quite down in the minutia. We're going to let the community and our advisory groups kind of bake it a little bit. You'll still get all the time you want with the code, but we feel like we can be a little bit more effective and efficient that way and remove some of that noise so you can see a little bit more of a finished product and then give us feedback from there.
And the issues get further, some vetting from the community too. So it's not like us as 5 city councilors making these seemingly pretty big decisions. Get some public feedback on that. So when it comes to us, we already kind of know where the public stands on it. That's great.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. When we realized how long it was going to take to move through those, it just seemed like really onerous for council. We'll take on that work and work with the community and bring something back.
Councilor Brike has some feedback.
As you know, I'm really impatient for all of this to happen. What I understand, though, is by going through this process and drafting the code, then when we do finally approve Vision 43, right after that, the next developer that comes in and wants to do something will be under the new code because it will all be kind of rolled in together. So if we approved the vision this month or next month, anybody that came in between now and when all the code was written would still be under the old rules.
That's correct.
And I also think by doing this with especially the community outreach, people are going to have a much better understanding of what that is. If we just say, the code's going to change, we'll talk about that later, then they have a lot of unease. They don't know what to expect. By going through this process with the code, I think we're going to end up with a really great product that people will understand and will be excited about. Hopefully as excited as I am.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that because I think that's exactly kind of the approach we're gonna, that shift, that pivot that we're gonna take is let's let this get vetted more through both our advisory groups, but also our community. And I think the community will feel more comfortable. Now, does that mean every person's gonna love it? Of course not. We know how this works. That's not gonna happen. But I think it will address a lot of concerns as we move through that process in that manner. Again, this is also part of why we've extended that contract and why we've extended the timeline. So.
And I feel like it doesn't really extend the timeline because as I said, if the code hasn't changed, somebody could come in with a project before we change the code and they're going under the old rules.
That's right. And just as an FYI to council, I'm sure you know this, but a reminder, if someone applies for a project today, today's code is what applies to their application, even if tomorrow the code was changed. So yeah, until the code is officially adopted, and then there's a 35-day, notification to the state. Once that clears, the code is active and live. So yeah, there's still some waiting time there, but I think this will get a better product and it will allow council to see something a little clearer and not have to kind of float around at 30,000 feet answering 15 different questions. I think we can get there without putting you through that torturous process. So that is our goal with how that's the pivot that we're talking about. And then while we're still on that, this is again the last parts of it here. Just a couple of things. There's a lot of different policy questions and thoughts and discussion about the code. This is just 2 slides of things that are being discussed, topics that are being discussed with the consultant internally, things like limiting drive-through uses or expansions and remodels of existing structures. Do they get exemptions or not? Height limits adjacent to residential zones. We all know that's important. Ensuring the massing of buildings doesn't create sort of that canyon or tunnel effect. An exceptions process. Will we have an exceptions process? Prioritizing pedestrian access to and through sites. Careful consideration of what is an allowed use near residential areas and properties. We obviously have a fairly hot topic with a car wash application right now. So we want to make sure the community has given their opinions about what those would be, what allowed uses those would be. Can we get every single one of them? Of course not. But we want to make sure that we are out getting those answers. And then obviously creating enough flexibility that development happens, but with our community's vision, not necessarily just a developer's vision, right? So it's much like Councilor Bright said, we all want this done. We've wanted this done. We can't wait till it's done. But the reality of it is sometimes we have to slow down, back up, listen to the community that we said we were going to listen to anyway, and try and redirect a little bit. So that's where we're at. Those are my 4 pieces for you tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that you might have.
Just one question on a related topic, the Urban Renewal District feasibility study. Any updates on that? Now that we've delayed the timeline on this, maybe it gives some time to synchronize the 2 potential efforts.
Yeah, so we received, Steve, our community development director, is the project manager on that, but we did receive an email from the consultant earlier this week, I want to say yesterday. And they're looking at the scope. He's kind of analyzing the scope right now, and we're expecting some feedback, I think, this week. So
Sweet.
That process is moving forward. We had a little bit of a pause there not on our end, But it looks like we're moving forward pretty
Sweet.
quickly now.
I think there's something there with the changing the zoning and then having the urban renewal district there in case development happens to capture those increased in assessed value there for this infrastructure and everything for the plan. It could help fund Vision 43 plan implementation even
Yeah.
down the line.
I think it's a very key and important piece to eventually have a successful corridor.
Thank you for the update. We'll look forward to hearing more about that in the future. Any other questions from the council? I also just got to thank you for you and Steve and Lynn for all your work and the community-centered approach you're taking to this, I think is awesome.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
from the,
Appreciate that.
it really feels like this community-informed plan and will be when it gets adopted in a few months. Even more so now that we're taking a few extra months to go back out to the community. This planning department listens to the community. I know that about them. So, Councilor Groner, did you have a comment there?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see no other, any closing comments? Last thing, just next steps. So I guess will this not come back to us for a while as you go out and to do
Yeah.
the?
I think I'd like to bring you just a small, like a 15-minute update, maybe in the next 2 to 3 months, just to keep you informed and not have such big gaps
Sweet.
in briefings. Nothing major, but let you know we're on track, let you know kind of generally what we're hearing. I think that would be, something that we could probably pull off pretty easily. And I just want to make sure council's informed. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process.
Sweet. That sounds great.
Okay.
I see no other comments from the council. I see no other comments from the council at this late hour, so I will let you go.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris and Steve. Lynn, we will move on to the final item on the agenda, and believe it or not, we are actually ahead of schedule per the agenda. It's 8:23, and we were scheduled to get to this at 8:50. So, Mr. Williams, you always have some great reports, so
Thank you, Mayor.
take it away.
But I did hear you say this late hour, so I will keep it short. As always, starting with your upcoming meeting calendar, this is your last session in October. We have 3 meetings scheduled in three regular meetings or work sessions scheduled in November. Work session on November 4th. Planning will be back talking about the Metro Town Center boundaries. We'll be explaining what those are, why they're important, and how you can think about them. And also an update on the operations complex design and funding. We've been doing a lot of work on the funding piece of that lately, and we very much want to have clear council direction and community awareness of where we are. The November 11th meeting is canceled because that is Veterans Day, day off for the city. Instead, the business meeting will be November 18th. That'll be a special meeting, and we have a number of things on that topic, including adoption of the waterfront plan, as we talked about earlier. We also have a special meeting scheduled November 17th. This is the morning meeting, the next follow-up meeting on the budget priorities and strategic plan work, which I talked a little bit last week. We are working on a draft plan as directed by council, and we will have a draft of that out for your consideration well in advance of the 17th. So we're excited about doing all that work. And then, as I always say this time of year, only 2 regular meetings left for 2025. So you've worked hard all year long. We have a few more big things to do. I also enjoyed the Metro Mixer this afternoon. I made specific pitches to specific Metro department directors about things that are going on in West Lynn. And it's my belief that everything you just heard about tonight is squarely in the wheelhouse of Metro. So I made a case, as I'm sure some of you did, for Metro interest in Highway 43, including infrastructure improvements in the future. There's a possibility to be a new transportation bond floated in the region within the next 5 years. West Lynn needs to be on the list of projects that would be part of that. We were last time. We should be again. And with the ambitious work that you are doing that's grounded in the community, I think we have a great chance to be included in consideration so that we can turn Highway 43 into something that we can really be proud of. So we should continue to advocate for that. even more squarely connected to Metro's goals is the waterfront project and the environmental and cultural work that is happening in that plan or that needs to happen after the vision is adopted. I think we have so many potential overlaps with Metro that we should just be having a mixer with them every week is sort of my plan, but they rejected that plan. But maybe some periodic event where we really make sure to meet with them. And having our district counselor be from West Lynn and so familiar with the work happening here and involved is a huge advantage and opportunity for us right now. We are the only Clackamas County community that has that. So let's take advantage of Councillor Lewis's passion for what's happening in West Lynn and make use of it. So I just think it's all very exciting. On the upcoming calendar, we have a NAP meeting on Thursday night that Councillor Bonington and I will be attending, I believe. Hopefully we have a quorum of NAP members at that meeting. On the city calendar, I noticed something. How often do you have a chance to be in a meeting with a Nobel Peace Prize winner? The library's author talk tomorrow is Malala Yousafzai, sorry, and talking about her new book. And I think it's a pretty cool opportunity, 4 o'clock tomorrow. If you want to join, you can find information on the city's calendar. That is super cool. The library is busy with Comic-Con. We were here earlier today about the Fall Festival in the Forest, and our staff did an amazing work on that from multiple departments. And I appreciate all of that. Also in the library vein, still time to participate in the library's strategic planning work. That comment period is open till November 4th, and you can find information on the city's website on that as well. Speaking of the library, as you know, I've been participating in a countywide library district task force that was convened by the county to think about the future of our library system. As we are heading towards 20 years from the current agreement, folks are thinking about what is the future of our library system? Is our funding adequate? How is funding divvied around the county by the various people that pay the levy? Work is happening on that, and I think enough is happening now that at some point in the next few months, it would be good to have a council topic on this. We don't tend to talk much in this room about library county services and funding, and I think it would probably be good to get us up to speed on that and have a conversation so that you can know what the county's thinking about. The reason this is important is there are a lot of people around the county thinking of potentially a major restructuring of the way county library services are provided and what the funding for those services are, which would be pretty complex. And I think it would be good to put a little marker and get some council feedback early on this process. So the next couple of months, probably early in the new year, we'll think about something like that. If you're interested, presuming you're interested. That is, I think, most of what I had. I will be at the ICMA conference, my National Professional Association, leaving Friday and back next Wednesday evening. So you know who to contact while I'm away. I will be working those days, but just a little less responsive than usual. So I wish you the joy of the season, and we'll see you in November.
Sounds good. And I heard through the grapevine on LinkedIn that you will be maybe speaking at the conference on a particular topic.
I am speaking.
Very
actually,
very exciting.
My predecessor. We're talking about creative community outreach and how you reach community in new ways. So it's going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, best of luck and best wishes to Mr. Gabrielatos as well as always. And have fun at the conference and learn a lot. And we will see everybody in November. Happy Halloween, everybody, and very early happy Halloween from the West Lynn City Council. We're adjourned. Thanks.